And I guess I will just turn it right over to Javier to start us off.
So I think there are two things. First is any questions or additional data points that you would like to have us get for you as we move forward in this budget process. We, as you know, had a Finance Committee meeting about 3 weeks ago now, and at that time you made a number of requests that we are in the process of documenting, and will be providing the Finance Committee data on that. So I think that that's the first item that I thought we needed to deal with today. And then I think the other item is more of thinking through the timeline and process for getting us to a budget. So in the budget book, there is a schedule, but I think based on our sort of assessment of the challenges that are associated with this budget, that we thought it would be worth spending a little bit of time talking through what are some of the other things that you would like to see happen during the budget process, and sort of changes in the schedules and so on. So,
Ms. Thompson?
Well, I apologize for the first
microphone.
We're still
Sarah, can you use the
mics.
microphone, please?
Oh, we are on mic.
Yes.
Yeah, we are. We decided to broadcast it, so.
I did twice, actually.
Okay then. Well, I didn't realize we were live streaming, so hello. I was wondering if you could provide to us, when you talk about the additions of, I'm trying to find the page here in the presentation, Make It Happen Coordinator, Mentoring Coordinator, Seal of Biliteracy, and Newcomer Center positions, if within the presentation and the investments, like under Adult Ed positions, Planning Institute, could you get us something back that spells out the dollar amounts that are associated with each of those?
Yes, that's something that we're already preparing, so, yes.
Okay. And then I had one other question, but I will look at it and come back. Thank you.
Anyone? Ms. Morioni?
I think that I would like to request, there was a food service increase amount in there that seemed pretty high increase.
It was only $13,000.
Oh,
It's a very large percentage increase, because there's very little money that comes out of the general fund for food service.
maybe that was that
it's
chart.
almost entirely self-supporting, and I do want to point out that Jane McLucas has done a tremendous job. As recently as 3-4 years ago, there was a $350,000 general fund expenditure for that area. So even though that Alicia, what are the specifics? It's like 40% increase, but it's only $13,000.
So the current year tax levy for food service is $35,000, and it's going to $47,000. So percentage-wise, it looks huge, but it's because it's a small number.
okay. So that was a question, and then they also mentioned laptops, and you had a dollar amount of increase, and you said something like teacher to student laptop. I just
So
want
this
to,
is, if you recall last year.
is this our laptop investment that we approved to have the
Correct,
laptop?
yes.
Okay.
This is just showing up in the budget. Last year's lease, because we didn't have it, well, Alicia, don't go sit down, just stay here.
I'm going to stand, sorry. So you did approve this a little over a year ago. No, it was this summer, I'm sorry. Seems like a long time ago. And we used E-rate reimbursement to fund that first year payment. So it wasn't allocated in the budget, so this is going to be our first budget appropriation to pay for it.
Okay. And so to Sarah's request, all those investments, the dollar amount, but also maybe even a little more description under each for the public to understand. What else did I have a question on? I think that's all for right now. Thank you. There was one more thing. We usually had a graph of our enrollment numbers, like it would go back maybe 5-10 years of enrollment, and just so we can show that, okay, actually we are still maintaining and or flat or increase wherever we are on enrollment numbers, would be helpful to add. Yeah, thanks.
Other requests for information? Ms. Thompson?
So obviously, I think we just need some time to digest what we saw tonight and be able to go through it again. And so should we just send those directly to the superintendent? Any further questions we have, so that way we can start gathering the questions for everybody?
I would say yes.
And I would also ask that you copy Alicia on it, just so
Okay.
that we're both, checking and double checking.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So just thinking broadly, and so just so I'm clear, the tax increase will be 9.7%?
That's the proposed tax increase, yes.
Have you and the staff been thinking about what happens if you don't get that, and what you're looking to cut, or where you're looking not to invest in?
So again, we, as you know, because you were at the Finance Committee, you asked for a number of things. We will be bringing those things to you so that you can make those decisions if you decide to go that route.
Sure. Yeah, and so some of the questions that I may ask are just, so the public knows.
Anyone else? No? Do you want to move into schedule?
Yes. So, a couple of things. So first, we are scheduled to meet with the Finance Committee on Thursday. Ms. Crocker and I seem to believe that we probably will not be having school on Thursday, although that is not an official pronouncement, because we don't know what the weather is actually going to be, but right now it doesn't look. So I think one of the things that we should be thinking about is an alternate date. Part of what we discussed last night with Jenna and Chair Terraro was the possibility of doubling up on the meeting next Tuesday if there is capacity on the finance. Okay, I'm seeing Ms. Davis say no.
It simply will be physical capacity. You would be asking me to stand because of my back for hours, and I can't do that. So, and I'm on both committees. I would have to make a choice and not attend something.
I'm open to other suggestions.
I just want to make sure that, and you have, hopefully you'll have to get a majority, but there's 4 of us that will be traveling at the National School Board Association Conference on that Thursday, April 5th, so we will not be here when we're supposed to vote to recommend the budget to the council. So just want to keep that into consideration, that you won't have 4 board members here.
So
What's that, I'm sorry?
that evening is actually a joint finance committee meeting with the city. So that's a finance committee meeting.
Well, it says vote to recommend FY19 budget to council.
The finance committee votes to recommend to the council.
I also won't be here. I'm out of state for a conference on the 5th.
Okay. Yeah, because Roberto is on the finance committee, and if Ms. Davis is not, so that's 2 out of your 4, I believe.
That would be the city voting, the city's finance committee voting back to the city's council. Sorry, that wasn't clear.
It's not clear. Okay. Yeah.
We'd be voting to recommend the budget to the...
Right. Just to sort of recap our schedule, we have 3 Finance Committee meetings scheduled on the 8th, on the 13th, and on the 15th. The plan, as it's currently laid out by the Finance Committee, is to bring a preliminary budget to the board at your next meeting on the 20th. So the first read would be on the 20th, and the vote to approve a budget would be scheduled for the 27th, which is a special meeting for that purpose and that purpose alone. That's the current schedule for the board. So if there are other things, especially given that we know that we are, that we don't, that we may not be able to meet on Thursday, I guess, that, what would your pleasure be in terms of being able to get this work done? And maybe that's something, Jenna, that the
I just have a quick question.
Finance Committee might...
Spacing-wise, is this the same as we've done in the past? The time between? Okay, thank you.
So this is what was done for the FY17 budget. Last year, you may recall, we ended up adding finance committee meetings and pushed it back, but this was the preliminary schedule that we followed. And we're certainly open to doing that again. That's one thing that we did talk about last night. The absolute latest that we could bring our budget to recommend to the city council is
It's 30 days, no, it's the last Monday
So
in
it's
April.
the last Monday in April. Right now, we have the last Monday in April as the first reading. So ideally, it would be April 23rd that we would bring it to the city council. They would refer it to Finance Committee that Thursday and perhaps get back to the city council for that first read on the 30th. And that would not alter our end dates that we have right now. In talking to Anita, they would certainly be open to scheduling that for us to bring the actual budget to the city council on the 30th. But again, that's the last day that we could do that. If we were to bring it on the 23rd, that gives us an additional 3 weeks. If we were to bring it on the 30th, that gives us an additional 4 weeks. So if that means we don't meet twice a week as a finance committee and we have longer meetings once a week, or we just add more meetings, then that's something we are open to doing.
So just to follow up to that, and maybe we have been following the schedule, but the 13th, the budget review, and then them to vote to recommend 2 days later, if there are some changes, that seems pretty aggressive. So I'm not sure that there's enough time span in here. That's why I asked you. It seems, again, if our finance committee have some recommended or more questions or changes to turn it around to the 15th, I think is maybe a little bit challenging. That's all.
Marty?
I had talked to the superintendent about this, but I'm still very, very, very concerned that we now only have that June vote. So I just wanted to see what happened with the city with regards to, or was it brought to the city? Could we go back to having that earlier vote separate from the June vote?
So,
if it does fail.
Just so that everybody understands that, the question is, we're currently, the schedule that you're looking at shows one referendum opportunity that is tied to the general primary, which is on June 12th. We discussed with the city manager and the mayor and Mr. Mabadonis, finance chair, yesterday, the possibility of adding May referendum vote, and so that would be the 22nd, and that would again be assuming that all of these, that we meet all of these scheduled steps, so that the city council can actually act on the budget 7 days before. So that would mean that they would have to meet on,
So,
they would have to approve it by the 17th, or no, not the 17th, the
so
15th.
that would get us to that April 23rd date where we would have to bring it to them. The 25th would be a finance committee, and hopefully only be one, and then they'd refer it back to the city council to follow the Monday, April 30th, May 7th, and May 14th dates that are on here now. So if we were going to push it any further than that, that would truncate the amount of time that we would have for a referendum, which would back us into being too close to the June if we had to have another.
We have just barely enough time between that May referendum date and a subsequent date, which would be the June primary date.
Okay. Are you feeling comfortable with only having this one vote to the public? Because I'm
No,
not.
I definitely would, have advocated, did last year and will again this year, for a May referendum for a lot of different reasons. So I absolutely would want us to be able to have that May vote. And, we have a letter drafted. Part of our conversation today is about, making sure that the board wants us to proceed and advocate in that direction. I know that, last year we asked for it and it didn't happen. And I think that there's a sense that we weren't serious in advocating for it, so I want to make sure that, we're all on board, because we will need to be serious in advocating for that.
Well, I'm just one of 9, but I would strongly advocate for having the May one in case it doesn't pass.
Jenna?
So this has been an ongoing conversation that I've had with Nick for the past month. And we, again, we had a leadership meeting with our counterparts at the city side yesterday. And so we agreed that this would be an item for discussion on the next joint finance committee meeting. That'll be the first item. And that scheduled meeting is supposed to be Thursday, March 22nd. The cities, they've indicated to us that the city clerk has already made plans for the June ballot, but obviously this is something that, it's not just on the superintendent to talk to the council about. I think they're looking for collectively the board to speak to the council about this. And so when that time comes, we will need everyone to show our support for that. Because last year, there was no one at that meeting.
Jenna, can we find out when they have to print the ballots? Because I think that we had that discussion in years past too, and why we had to have certain things by certain dates. So if we could find out in that conversation, like now maybe, because March 22nd may be a moot point for you to discuss it, and then maybe too late, because I think she had said at the first week there of April. So we may be okay, but I'm thinking that we might be by the skin of our teeth.
We will definitely follow up on that and get the drop dead date, but I think it's important for us to know that the board is committed to wanting to have that May vote.
Because it takes 60 days to get it on the ballot. So that's that's what I understood, 60 days to get.
No,
okay.
It has to be noticed for 7 days.
I'm seeing that the
7 days,
mayor
okay.
may know the answer. He's raising his hand.
There is a 30-day requirement if it's going to go in the June, because that's a state election, so there is. But if it's in the past, for instance, we've passed the budget like on passed it on a Friday and it's on a Tuesday. If we print our own ballots, but there is a state process. So for the June election, you got to give it 30 days. If we go with the May election, you can do it literally within 3 or 4 days. So that's just to provide that feedback on that piece.
Anyone else?
So on the Finance Committee schedule, how do you want to proceed?
So if we're talking about Thursday, March 8th, that particular one, I say we just move it to Friday if people are available. Let's get one meeting in before we meet again on Tuesday.
Jenna? Yeah, does Friday work? I think you're the chair of the committee. I think it's important for you. There's a proposal to have a meeting on Friday.
Right, so between now and, we're scheduled to have 2 meetings by March 13th, right? Let's keep that and build in time so that we can make adjustments. So my suggestion is to have it Friday. If not, let's be aggressive. Let's go. Oh, I can't do it tomorrow morning. Friday. I was going to suggest tomorrow morning, but let's be aggressive, bold.
So I would support adding meetings, obviously what the committee needs to get its work done. There's also the possibility of elongating the Finance Committee's timeline to give ourselves more time, and also more opportunities for the public to weigh in, given that two meetings worth of 2 meetings within a week might not be enough. So is that something that my colleagues, Roberto and Lori, are able to accommodate Friday?
later,
5 PM?
it's tight for me, I'm in Gorham. 5:30 would be better.
Roberta? Okay.
So you keep March 8th to Friday, March 9th?
Yeah, 5:30.
Very short.
I know that people are in the snow, so maybe Tuesday would be more likely, but
I think, my suggestion, just from a process standpoint, is to really try to keep to this schedule and let, pushing it out and adding meetings be dictated by the meeting that you're in that day. In my experience, you have a meeting, you realize you're not where you thought you were going to be by the end of that meeting, and then by necessity, you end up having to write in more meetings or push out the timeline. So I think it's important at the front end to try to keep to the aggressive timeline, knowing that you have a little bit built in case you need it. What? Anybody else? Is that everything that you need from us?
I think so. Is that everything that you
Can I ask you a
need?
clarifying question? So are we going to, I guess I'm not, I understand we're trying to stay with an aggressive timeline here, but the 13th to the 15th obviously is 2 days, and to have a public hearing and workshop and the vote, and then 2 days prior have a review, I mean, it just, to me, it sounds really overly aggressive, and I'm really concerned about that.
I'm happy to
Even if you add a Wednesday,
accommodate
the
whatever
14th.
schedule. I mean, this is the schedule that the Finance Committee developed. I had no
No, I know,
nothing
I
to do with
understand
it.
that. I'm just
So
looking at it.
I think, we just heard from the chair and from the chair of the committee that they would like to stick to the aggressive timeline and then extend it if necessary. I think that
But what
makes
about
sense as
public
well.
notice? I
And I
mean,
think that,
if my concern, Javier, is the percent of increase and the advocacy and that you want us to do and the conversations we need to have, and I'm just thinking that is a very, very short window for us to do any kind of advocacy or defending of the budget, and,
Okay.
I'm not happy about that.
Can I give you a proposed amendment? So if we're meeting Friday for our first meeting, our second meeting we'll keep on the 13th. We can choose to keep the 15th or wait. The 20th obviously will not be first read. We will take that off the schedule. We are going to keep the 22nd joint finance committee with the city. We will change the March 27th, which was only added for a second reading for budget purposes. We can make that a finance committee meeting, with the goal that that's when the finance committee would vote to recommend the budget back to the board, so that the 27th, which would have our first reading at the board on the 3rd, and we would have to add a second meeting on the 10th to get that approved. And this would bring us, and I do want to note that second joint meeting on April 5th, we are required by charter to meet twice within the 30 days that we bring the budget, so that's within tonight. So we have to keep that April 5th meeting as our second joint meeting with the city council. Okay, so the Tuesday, March 27th, in here would be a special board meeting, and we will just change that to a finance committee meeting. We will probably not have it at 7. We'll have to talk about times.
So what's on the 27th, would that move down to April 2nd? So we're kind of moving it,
So the 3rd, so yes, the 3rd would now be first reading.
So you'd still keep the April 2nd, and then you add a third in between the 2 and the 5?
So the April 2nd would no longer be going to the city council anymore. We'd have to change that.
Okay. That
so
would be
we could-
Tuesday the 3rd, you said?
Correct. We could do first reading Tuesday the 3rd and second reading the 10th. I'm assuming we are not going to be meeting Tuesday over April vacation. So that
We need to, but.
if we need to, that could be second reading. If we wanted time in between, if we wanted to go back-to-back weeks, we could go the 3rd and the 10th. Which would get us to,
The only thing, Alicia, too, about the 10th is we're still not, the 4 of us are still not here. So I
okay,
don't know
well,
if it has
that
any
won't
merit.
work.
And I'm going to back up to your joint meeting with the city council, because I don't think that most of the school finance committee is going to be here. So I'm not sure at what point it qualifies as a joint meeting if none of us are there.
We've talked about these dates for months and months now, so I didn't know that you were going to be gone.
I have let people know that for a long time.
No.
As soon as I knew
Okay.
this, I shared it with Jenna and others, so.
I might be there, but I'm not sure if I'm Friday or Thursday. I have to email me.
Half of the committee, it would be 2/3.
And this will be our second meeting with them as well.
Required by the timeline formed by the city charter.
Yes. So instead of Monday, April 2nd, our goal would be to bring our budget to the city council on April 23rd. We would likely have another finance committee meeting with them on the 26th, as they generally refer our budget to finance committee. And the hope would be that we would then fall into our existing timeline of the 30th, the 7th, and the 14th, which would allow us to have a May 22nd referendum date, should that be what our request is. Okay. Any questions? I will type it out and send it out as soon as possible.
Okay. Any last thoughts? No? All right, then we can conclude the workshop. Thank you for staying.